Imagine stepping outside and not feeling the wind. Imagine looking up at the sky you've known all your life, blue, endless, alive, and realizing it's gone. No clouds drifting, no rain falling, no air you can breathe. Now imagine the world wrapped in silence. Oceans dried to salt plains, forests burned to black ash, storms howling with poison winds. You press a hand to your throat and know that if you stood outside for even a minute, your lungs would turn to fire. This is not imagination for the people of tomorrow, it is their truth. Because when the atmosphere collapsed, humanity did not vanish. It retreated. They built cities under glass. Domes rose like shimmering bubbles across the bones of the earth. Fragile sanctuaries pressed against the void. Inside, life persisted. Crooked towers of steel, gardens fed by humming machines, streets alive with neon light. Outside, there was nothing but ruin and storm. The largest of these sanctuaries was Vera, the last jewel of humanity. Its crown of glass arched so high it seemed to cradle the stars themselves. For generations, the people believed it eternal, until the cracks began to form. Within Vera, life looked familiar at first glance. Markets bustled, children laughed in synthetic parks, music echoed from open windows. Screens flickered with endless light, and drones buzzed above the streets like mechanical birds. But listen closely. The air hummed with tension. Every breath was rationed by machines that kept the dome alive. Every harvest was calculated, every drop of water filtered and measured. People woke and slept under artificial dawns. They leaned against the glass and stared at the swirling storms outside, imagining what the wind would feel like if it touched their skin. They told stories of oceans they had never seen, skies they had never known, stars that once shone without glass between them. And always overhead, the dome loomed, clear, vast, untouchable, until one day, a faint sound rippled through the city. A crack. It began as a whisper, high above the northern quarter. A hairline fracture, thin as a strand of hair, spread across the dome's perfect curve. Few saw it at first, but the sound carried, a brittle echo like ice shifting on a frozen lake. Citizens looked up in fear. Parents pulled children from the streets. Engineers climbed towers to study the wound. And for the first time in a century, the people of Vera realized the sky above them was not eternal. Relatable fear settled in their bones. The same fear you feel when a roof leaks during a storm or when glass trembles in your hands. If the dome cracked further, there would be no fixing it. Outside, the poisoned air pressed close. Inside, whispers grew into panic. The fracture in the dome was only the beginning. Beneath the glass, society began to crack as well. The wealthy gathered in the central spire, confident their resources would protect them. The poor crowded in the outrings, staring at the crack overhead and wondering who would be saved if the dome failed. Some argued for repairs, others whispered of escape. But escape to where? Beyond the dome was nothing but storm and silence. Still, desperation breeds wild ideas. A group of scientists claimed they had built suits strong enough to walk outside, if only for minutes. Volunteers lined up, risking death just for the chance to feel the open air, even if that air was poison. Inside every citizen, a question grew. What happens when the glass shatters? Among the whispers rose a figure both feared and admired. Kalen, the Domerite. He was the last of the great engineers, a man who claimed he could mend the dome with machines older than memory. But Kalen was no ordinary man. Some said he spoke to the machines as if they were alive. Some said his blood had been replaced with liquid metal, his eyes glowing faintly with the hum of circuitry. He promised salvation, he promised the dome could be healed, and the people believed, because they had no choice. As Kalen worked, the city shifted. Riots broke out in the outrings. Families hoarded oxygen canisters, food and water. Friends turned to strangers at the promise of survival. But even in chaos, wonder lingered. Children pressed their hands to the glass crack, watching how the poison storms outside licked at the edges like living fire. They dreamed of worlds beyond, even as those worlds threatened to kill them. The dome groaned each night with the strain of holding back nothingness. Each morning, new fractures appeared, small, thin, but multiplying. The glass was alive, and it was breaking. It wasn't just the dome that fractured. The people themselves began to change. Dreams turned strange. Citizens spoke of hearing voices in the night, whispers rising through the cracks. Some claimed the storms outside were calling to them, offering freedom in exchange for surrender. Others began to see visions in the glass, memories of oceans, skies, forests that no longer existed. The dome was not just breaking, it was remembering. And in those memories, humanity glimpsed what it had lost. Kalen stood at the heart of the central spire, machines whirring around him like clockwork wings. He unleashed swarms of drones to weave molten strands of metal across the fractures, stitching the sky shut. Sparks rained down like falling stars as the dome shuddered and screamed. For days, the city watched as their artificial heaven was reforged. The cracks seemed to still. Hope returned like a cautious flame. But glass, once broken, is never whole again. On the seventh night, a sound split the air. Not a whisper this time, a roar. The largest crack tore across the dome like lightning. Entire sections of glass trembled, buckling under the weight of poison winds. People screamed, lights failed, alarms echoed like the tolling of bells. Through the rupture, the outside bled in. Not all at once, but enough. A haze of toxic air spilled down into the northern quarter, twisting steel and flesh alike. Citizens fled, but some did not. Some stood at the edge of the breach, eyes wide, arms outstretched, as if welcoming the storm. For the first time, they felt wind on their faces. It burned. It tore at their lungs. But it was real. Kalen's machines screamed against the tide, sealing what they could. But the dome was no longer eternal. It was wounded, scarred, trembling. And the people of Vera knew their sanctuary was no longer safe. When dawn rose, artificial and flickering, the dome still stood, but barely. Whole districts were abandoned, blackened by the toxic air. Families huddled in fear, whispering of evacuation, though no one knew to where. Kalen vanished, his machines silent. Some said he had been consumed by his work. Others believed he had stepped through the breach and walked into the storm. Life in Vera continued, but nothing was the same. Every glance upward carried dread. Every creak in the glass made hearts stop. And beneath it all, a question pulsed through the city like a heartbeat. Is this the end of the last city, or the beginning of something new? No one knew the answer. No one dared to. The dome stood, cracked and trembling. The people breathed, waiting for the next sound. Somewhere beyond the glass, the storms raged on. And somewhere beneath it, humanity waited, wondering if the sky would fall.